It was 1969. The weather was cold, and there were no distractions. The Martin family was on a peaceful camping trip in the heart of Great Smoky Mountains National Park, one of the most famous and beautiful parks in the United States. 6-year-old Dennis Lloyd Martin was a happy child. Around 4:30 p.m., while participating in an innocent race with his brother and grandfather, the inexplicable happened. In a matter of seconds, right before his family's eyes, in an area with no steep cliffs or obvious dangers, Dennis Martin vanished completely. No one heard a scream. There was no evidence of a stumble or fall. The boy simply disappeared in an entirely ordinary moment. Dennis's disappearance was not just another missing person case. It became part of a broader and more terrifying pattern documented by investigator David Polades under the name Missing 411. The largest search in the park's history was launched, involving hundreds of rescuers, military personnel, and police dogs. But the area where Dennis disappeared yielded no trace of him, no footprints, no torn clothing, not a single piece of physical evidence indicating his direction of travel. This absolute silence in the heart of the forest fueled the intense speculation. The turning point that ignited the suspicions. 3 days after Dennis's disappearance, at a location approximately 100 miles from where he vanished, an elderly couple hiking reported hearing a boy's cry, followed by silence, and then the prolonged, desperate wailing of a woman coming from deep within the woods. Although the police connected the report to the story, they deemed it geographically irrelevant. But in the context of the Missing 411 investigation, this report became pivotal. Had Dennis been taken to a remote location? And who was the woman howling? More importantly, Polades pointed out that the disappearances of the 411 often occur in areas characterized by granite rocks or unusual water formations, and that sudden and violent weather changes occur after the disappearance, hindering the search. The enduring horror of this story, which fuels online discussions, is the pattern of finding other missing persons who fall into the same category. They are later found in impossible circumstances, naked or inappropriately dressed, or at heights they could not have reached. This leaves the Reddit community grappling with theories ranging from organized abductions by human predators who use the forests as hideouts, to more sinister and bizarre hypotheses suggesting the existence of spatial rifts or a gateway to reality at the heart of those very parks, pulling people away in a moment of absolute silence. The case of Dennis Martin, the boy who vanished during a simple race, remains evidence that there are unknown forces in the wilderness capable of stripping a person of their existence without leaving behind a trace that human logic cannot comprehend. Now, the Smoky Mountains National Park has gone from being a strange and eerie place in Kentucky to a bizarre tourist attraction shrouded in conspiracy theories, and the Missing 411 are a thing of the past. Now for the second story, which is considered one of the most famous and strangest creepypasta stories on Reddit. This story isn't about a place or a crime, but about a terrifying idea born in the heart of Reddit, and it revolves around a test of reality itself. Right Left Game began as a daily blog post under the pseudonym Neon Jellyfish, documenting a road trip funded by a mysterious organization called The Organization. The rule was absolute and final. At every fork in the road, the group had to make an immediate decision to turn right or left, without any prior analysis, and most importantly, never to return the same way. This trip, which started as something exciting, quickly turned into a psychological nightmare as the vehicles began taking them to places that defied the boundaries of geography and logic. The group moved from familiar highways to narrow tracks, and then to what seemed like a distorted version of the world. The protagonist, the narrator, documented how the cities they passed through were almost identical to real cities, but eerily empty of people, except for some things that weren't living beings in the conventional sense. The reality grew increasingly bizarre, the sky shifted to impossible shades, and time stretched and contracted in illogical ways. The biggest debate on Reddit centered on the human mind's capacity to withstand such perceptual distortion, as the journey seemed more than just a change of location. It was a displacement of consciousness into different dimensions. Adding to the terror was the revelation of a watchful entity they called the Doctor, seemingly controlling the rules of the game and guiding them down this endless path. This entity left cryptic and terrifying messages on their garbled radios or appeared in strange details at abandoned gas stations, confirming that they were not alone in their labyrinth. At one point, they even entered what they called the Museum of Paradoxes, where they witnessed scenes that defied all laws of physics, as if reality itself had been merged and dismantled. The horrors continued, accompanied by a gradual psychological breakdown for the team members, who could no longer distinguish between the decisions they had made and the distorted reality they were experiencing. They even began to wonder if they had actually left the real world. The blog post ended abruptly and completely, with the narrator's final entry describing how the absolute silence inside the car was suddenly shattered by a radio repeating a single word: turn. The story left unfinished, without revealing whether the group survived or whether they had reached the end of the game. The story of Right Left remains an enduring mystery online, the horror not being in the fate of the missing, but in the idea that a simple, everyday decision could open a hidden path leading to a reality from which there is no escape.